Hi, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today we'll be learning how to sew up a cute quilted cover up for our computer. This is the new pink iMac 24 inches and I got it for my birthday. I'm going to go ahead and make a cover for it. I figured that I can actually sew one up instead of purchasing one. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you it fits perfectly on our computer here. And I'm going to be showing you on how to sew it step by step, and the measurements will be on the description below. Let's go ahead and let's jump into it. All right, I'm going to go ahead and measure my screen. Now I want to make sure that I take my seam allowances into consideration and my 1/4 inch of my screen as well, since it's a little bit thick on the sides here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be cutting out my fabric to 26 inches in length. And then for my height, I'm going to round, it's about 14.5, but I'm going to round it to 15. But I want the front screen and the back screen all together in one piece. So I'm going to do 32 inches because I'm taking 2 inches into consideration for the seam allowance as well. So 32 inches in height and 26 inches in length. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's cut out our fabric. I have my fabric here. And since I had said that my screen is 15 inches in height, I want to, instead of cutting 2 pieces, I'm just going to cut one whole big piece. So I'm going to take into consideration the front screen and the back of the computer. So I did 32 inches in height because I am adding 0.5 inches for the seam allowance in the front and in the back. And then I'm going to do 23 inches in length so that I can have space on the sides to be able to bring down my cloth. Chalk pencil from Amazon, so I'll make sure to be linking it down below on the description. Now, since I'm going to put batting to make it in form of a quilt, I'm going to need the exact same size. So I'm going to be cutting 32 inches in height and then 23 inches in length. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for my batting and my lining, since I don't want this to be seen. So let's go ahead and let's cut these two out. So I have my pieces already. Easier and to have your whole piece. You have your main fabric here, and then the last one is our batting. The batting is to give it a nice quilted look, and it can be soft when you are putting it over the screen. If you do not want this one, you can also use another type of interfacing that is soft. And then if you don't want to add any interfacing, then you can technically do it with just one piece of fabric. I want to give it a nice quilted look, which is why I'm going to do it this way. So I will be now ironing down my batting onto the main fabric. All right, remember that when you have interfacing, you want to make sure that you do the rough side down. And then when you are putting interfacing, I always recommend to turn your fabric the other way, so that way you can iron it a lot easier with this side. Making sure that you align it first and then you just start ironing it down. You can hold it in place or you can kind of glide it just a little bit all the way around your fabric. All right, so once you have ironed all of it down already, this iron, I got it from Amazon. So I will be putting my Amazon storefront link on the description. It works really good and it's really smooth when I'm passing it through to iron my fabric. And now I'm going to go ahead and make my lines. I also got this one from Amazon, so I'll be putting it down below in the description. And I'm going to be using this to guide me to make perfect lines. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making horizontal lines, and then I'm going to move on to doing vertical lines. So I'm going to do the whole thing. This is your own preference. You can make your lines however you want. You can also make 2-inch ones, 3-inch ones, or you can even make smaller ones. I like this because it's perfect and it guides you to give you a perfect line. You can also make the lines already prior to going to your sewing machine, or you can also just start making lines when you start sewing. You do not have to make any lines. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and just start sewing by using my guide ruler here for my lines. So let's go ahead and let's go to our sewing machine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my guide ruler. You want to make sure that you insert it right here. And this does go up, so it should give you access there. I'm going to put it in right there. and if it's perfectly, and again, you can measure it how far in you want it. So this is your preference of where you want it. Okay, so now that you've inserted it, you have your ruler. You want to make sure not to stick it all the way in, because then this is going to hit your ruler when you're going up and down. You want to make sure that it has enough space, and you can guide yourself if you want it right here, or again, it's your own preference, wherever you want it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start sewing the lines. All right, just to show you the settings of my machine, my tension is going to be 4. I have my needle position in the middle, and then I have my width 4, and then my length is 2. And you'll see at the end what these settings will look like on the fabric. Okay, so for the first line, you want to make sure to sew one line first, at least to be able to guide you. So I'm going to go ahead and sew a 3/8 of a line here, and I'm just going to go all the way down, and then that's how I'm going to be measuring it until I get to my ruler here, that my ruler will then guide me to give me a straight line. Okay, once you're done with your first line, then you can guide yourself to do the second one. Now remember, if you do smaller lines, then you're gonna have to do a lot more lines. But in this case, since I already gave myself a guide here, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna be sewing up 2 inches between each of my lines here. And I already adjusted my ruler here so that I can make sure that I do 2 inches all the way across horizontally and then vertically. My squares are going to be a little bit bigger. All right, so we're going to go ahead and just continue sewing until we get all the way to the one side, to the end of one side. All right, now that you've done your vertical lines, we're going to go ahead and now do horizontal. Now remember, this is your preference, whatever lines you want to make, and then how far apart you want to make them. These are 2 inches apart from one another. And I'm going to go ahead and now do the horizontal ones. Okay, once you have all your lines, I can show you a little close-up of what the setting looks like. You can see the stitching is very close together, gives it a nice look. All right, so once you have already your cover folded for your label, I got this label from Ever Emblem, and they're the iron-on, so they're really cute and very convenient. After I iron them, I always make sure to stitch around it as well, just so that it doesn't fall off. All right, I already have my label stitched up. I'm gonna go ahead and now fold it in half, and then I'm going to go to my sewing machine and sew down the line right here on each side, and then my lining, and I'm going to go ahead and now fold it in half. And with my lining, I'm going to sew on one side completely, and on the other side I'm going to leave an opening so that way I can pull out my main cover from my lining. Okay, so let's go to our sewing machine. All right, I'm keeping the same setting as before when I was doing the main cover, and then don't forget to front and back stitch. And I forgot to mention, I did a 3/8 seam allowance. You're going to make sure that you leave an opening on the other side so you'll be able to pull out your main fabric. All right, now you're going to go ahead and trim off the edges, and also for the lining. And then you're going to go ahead and turn the main cover around. So we're going to turn it around. It's coming out so cute. Make sure to poke out the edges. This is actually kind of also the same method if you were to be doing a tote bag as well. You have a big tote bag right here. I do have a tutorial on how to make a tote bag though. All right, the lining is still inside out, so you have your stitches here, and now we're going to insert our main cover into the lining. You can fold it up, and then make sure that you place each corner with each corner. Pushing it in, and then it will go down, so just make sure to push it down, and then go ahead and you're going to do seam allowance with seam allowance from the main cover with your lining, and then on the other side as well. And then we're going to go to our sewing machine and we're going to sew up all the way around in a circle. And if you like, you can just make sure that you're pushing it down so that your lining aligns with your main fabric. You can put one there and then one here. And then let's go to our sewing machine. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and do a 3/8 seam allowance all the way around. You've sewn all the way around. We just have 2 more steps and we'll be done. Go ahead and pull it out. Sure that you are poking out the edges from your lining, and then we're going to go ahead and go to our sewing machine and close up our lining part here. I'm going to go ahead and clip this down and go to our sewing machine to close this up. All right, once you've closed your lining, go ahead and now you're going to push in the lining inside, and the last step is to give it a nice seam allowance all the way around our cover here, making sure that you're pushing down the lining and that it connects with the top cover. You can clip it down or you can move it as you are going through your sewing machine if you would like to do that instead. Let's go to our sewing machine and give it a nice top stitch. Right, I'm giving it a 3/8 seam allowance again all the way around. And voila, you are done with your cover. Isn't this cute? Oh my gosh, I love it. And oh my gosh, there we go. It fits perfect. So remember, 26 inches in length and then 32 inches in height because of the one big piece. There you have it. Remember, if you liked the tutorial, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I will be coming up with more tutorials in the future.